On this podcast, we talk often about life, loss, and what truly matters. And part of that is taking care of the life we've been given. Did you know that cardiovascular disease and stroke are two of the leading causes of death in the U.S.? Yet 80% of these can actually be prevented. That's why I've partnered with Lifeline Screening. They offer a package of 4 quick, painless screenings for just $159. It's one appointment at one of over 14,000 locations across the country. No needles, no hospital gowns, no hassle. Just simple tests that can bring peace of mind or provide early detection. Lifeline Screening has already screened more than 10 million people, so don't wait. A simple screening can change the rest of your life. Click the link in my show description to schedule your appointment today. And now for today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Grief Observed podcast. I'm your host, Brad Morrell. And if you would like to join me for an episode, you can find me on Facebook or TikTok or Gmail, all under the name of Grief Observed Podcast. Just contact me and we will get you on the show as soon as possible. My guest today is Sam Jensen. She is here to speak about the tragic death of her daughter. And she is another one that I found on TikTok. I found her story quite interesting and really wanted to bring that out to listeners. So, Sam, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem.
I always state that I hate people come on this show, but I'm happy that you're here. It's just not a great reason to meet someone, but here we are, right?
Absolutely. I always say it's a club I don't want to be in, but I've met some of the best people.
Yeah, it is really a tight-knit community whenever you get into grief.
Hmm.
And the stories you hear, even though they're all unique, it says, I'm not alone in the grieving process. Now, with every death, it is unique. I always say it's like a fingerprint or a snowflake. They're all different. They may have some similarities, but they're all different. And so were the people that we lost, right?
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell listeners a little bit about who you are first?
My name is Sam, and I am a mom to 4 beautiful children. I live on a 7-acre homestead, and we just are living the little farm life with my little rural babies, and we are just having a great time in life. My oldest daughter, Scarlett, is in heaven, and my other 3 children are here on earth with me.
I'm so glad that you stated that exactly the way you did, that you have 4 children. I've
Hmm.
had people that struggle. Do I state that I now have 3 children? And I'm like, just because one of your children have passed away does not mean that they're still not your child. So it was really
Absolutely.
good to hear you state that you still have 4 children.
Absolutely. She's always going to be my baby, and she will always be my child, no matter if her physical body is here on earth or if she's in heaven.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we'll get into the faith aspect as well.
Hmm.
I don't always draw that out with clients. Listen at me. With guests, I'm still in counseling mode from the week, but I do enjoy hearing people's faith stories because I feel like a lot of our hope comes from those areas.
Hmm.
Whenever I have someone come in the counseling office, I'll ask, is your faith important to you? If it
Hmm.
is, we'll explore that. If it isn't, I always ask, then where do you find your hope?
Hmm.
And I've heard some interesting stories over the years, and um, I'm not willing to believe that everybody that listens to this podcast is a believer, nor am I trying to evangelize through this podcast. But
Sure.
I do feel like grief starts making us question, number one, our own mortality, and two, what do I believe is after this?
Hmm.
So maybe we'll explore that a little bit. But
Yeah.
first, I want you to tell me about Scarlett.
Yeah. Scarlett was wonderful. She was my oldest, my very first baby. She was born She's a New Year's baby. So she was born on January 1st,
Nice.
2019. And my husband was deployed at the time. So it was just me and Scarlett. And we just had this special bond. She was my oldest, my first baby. She made me a mom,
Mhm.
and she was the most intelligent child. Like I wanted to homeschool her. And we started doing preschool because she was 3. And she was so much smarter than I was. I did not feel prepared to homeschool her because I knew that by grade 2, she was going to be just way over my head and I wasn't going to be able to keep up with her. Um, I always tell the story of she was running around the house saying some word that I didn't know what she was saying, and she was speaking Swahili. I don't know where she learned it from, and I don't know what she was saying, but we figured it out eventually. And she was saying, "You can't catch me," in Swahili, running around the house.
Wow.
I
Wow.
just, she was so intelligent. She was teaching me about echolocation and bats, and she just was so smart, and she was so kind. Um, she had the most gentle heart towards animals and her siblings. Her little brother, Henry, was her best friend. She just wanted to do everything with him and show him the world and teach him teach him everything. And she was a very good big sister. That was her favorite role, was being a big sister. Um, and she was just a ray of sunshine, very bright and loving, and wanting to please, and just a very intelligent, kind little girl.
I hate to use the word full, but it sounds like she lived a very full life for a 3-year-old, right? It's
Absolutely.
not that there wasn't and that we wouldn't hope for more experiences, but it
Hmm.
sounded like she lived it to the fullest. Maybe that's what I
Yeah,
mean.
absolutely. We just packed every single day with adventures and fun things together and family memories and just exploring the world and getting to enjoy our time together. And obviously we didn't know our time was going to be so short, but I feel like we really packed a lot into those 3 years.
Hmm. Yeah, I know we've really not spoken about what happened yet,
Hmm.
and I will get there. But since you've kind of mentioned that, I do want to ask you, um, taking things for granted,
Mm.
you don't expect a 3-year-old to pass away for sure.
Hmm.
When we look at people who are 80s, 90s, it's kind of like those things are coming.
Sure.
We can expect that a little uh, quicker in life, I guess. But for a 3-year-old, I'm
Hmm.
sure that it really, really changed your mindset on taking things for granted.
Absolutely. I mean, every single day since then, I've just been thankful for my children and trying to enjoy even the hard days and really trying to just soak it all in and make the most of every single day, even if it's just a stay at home kind of day. Like, I'm going to be intentional about playing with them and getting to know them as little people and just really trying to make the most of every single day, every single minute that I have with them and with, my other family and friends, because you never know when it's going to be somebody's time. And it's just really important to have those memories to hold on to.
Yeah. When I talk about personality, a lot of times I talk about how it really starts to form concrete in, say, age 11 to 16 area.
Hmm.
But I think the one thing that we can see already with Scarlett is personality is formed very early,
Hmm.
right? It sounds like she was, like you said, very intelligent, very full of life and
Yes.
energy. So
Yes.
I love to hear that when I start thinking about when does personality form, and it sounds like she had quite the personality.
She had a personality from the day she was born. She was sassy and just full of spunk and life, and just she loved life. She loved every single day. She was just happy to be there. And I mean, of course, she had bad days and she could slam doors like a teenager, but she just she just enjoyed life.
every human comes with their own challenges, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm certain that I have plenty of my own as far as my personality, and
Hmm.
I'm not always the easiest person to deal with. I try to be, but there are days, so we
Sure.
can certainly expect that out of a 3-year-old as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, Sam, one of the things that drew me to your TikTok was certainly the heart-wrenching story. And I would love to open that up if we can with
Hmm.
listeners to know how and what happened, what transpired in the life of Scarlett, and certainly it just seemed very chaotic because I know you were
Hmm.
on a trip coming
Hmm.
back. Why don't I just give you the reins here and you kind of
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about what happened?
sure. So, October of 2022, I was on a trip with my brother and my 2-month-old daughter, Molly. And we were flying home, and on a layover, we FaceTimed with the kids. And my mom asked if she could take Scarlett and Henry to go get ice cream. And we do that all the time. There was a McDonald's right down the road from our house that we would go get ice cream there, and we would go in the stroller, and it was a normal occurrence for us. And so I said, of course, that's fine. It's a beautiful day. Enjoy the last of the sunshine before fall. And so then I got on another plane after my layover, and my mom put Scarlett and Henry in the stroller and walked them to McDonald's to get ice cream. And they had their ice cream, enjoyed their afternoon, and were walking home. When they got almost all the way home, there's a dirt road that leads up to the back of our house. It's a private road. It's just a driveway pretty much that goes to my house and the neighbor's house. It doesn't let out anywhere. Um, and they were walking up that road, and Scarlett wanted to stop to pick flowers. So they got out of the stroller. Scarlett was picking flowers. And my mom saw a car speeding up the road towards that dirt road. Um, and it continued to accelerate and continue to accelerate. And she's waving her arms and yelling at him and, trying to get the driver's attention. Um, and she said that she made eye contact with him and was waving him down, trying to get him to stop. The kids were too far away from her for her to reach them in time. And the driver hit all three of them at a very high rate of speed, and then hit a tree and rolled his vehicle. And then he jumped out of the vehicle and fled the scene. Um, and a neighbor, thankfully, was outside watering plants at the time and heard what happened and came to see what had happened, and found my mom very badly injured, called 911. And at that point, I was still on the plane. When my plane landed, I got an emergency alert text that I get all the time for just like traffic updates and like road accidents, that kind of thing. And I got a text that said that there was heavy activity, police activity, ambulance activity, on Valley Street, which was our street, and we were the only house on that street.
Hmm.
Um, so I immediately was worried. I tried to call my mom. She didn't answer. She always answers the phone, especially when she knows that, she's with my kids and I'm somewhere else. She always answers the phone. So I called her several times. She didn't answer. So I called my husband at work. Um, and while I was on the phone with my husband trying to see if he could, get home and see what was going on, they made an announcement over the loudspeaker on the plane that I needed to deboard the plane immediately. Um, and that's when I knew that something was like really wrong. And when I got off the plane, there were police officers waiting for me, and they told me that I needed to call the hospital. They didn't know what had happened, but I needed to call the hospital.
Hmm.
So I have my 2-month-old baby strapped to my chest in a baby carrier. I'm sitting in the middle of a busy airport, and I'm calling the hospital trying to figure out what's going on. And all the hospital tells me is that my son Henry was hit by a car and was life flighted to the nearest big city. And that I needed to get there immediately because they didn't know if he was going to survive.
Wow.
So I'm in the middle of an airport, screaming, crying, freaking out. The police are trying to calm me down. I hand one of the police officers my infant child, and I said, I cannot hold this baby right now. I need you to take care of my child.
Wow.
And another police officer drove me to the hospital. My brother came and took the baby. Um, Another police officer drove me to the hospital. And at this point, I still had only heard that Henry had been hit by a car. I had no idea where my mom and Scarlett were. I figured they were on their way to the hospital or, trying to figure out what to do with Henry. So I get to the hospital. Henry's in very, very bad shape. There he had a laundry list of things that were broken and fractured and bruised and lacerated, and he was very, very injured. And after I was there for what felt like forever but was probably only 5 or 10 minutes, a chaplain came in and got me, and I thought they were just going to tell me the story of what happened to Henry, but they told me instead that Scarlett and my mom were also involved and Scarlett didn't survive. Um, I just was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I thought they were wrong. I didn't know what to say. I was shocked, and the first thing that came out of my mouth was, she can't be dead. She has a soccer game tomorrow.
Mm.
And I was in disbelief. I wasn't going to believe it until I saw her or heard what happened. But at that point, I had to call my husband and tell him that he needed to get to the hospital. I was calling everyone I knew saying, please pray for Henry. We need Henry to survive. Like, I was just rallying everybody that I knew and getting people to the hospital. Friends were getting on planes to fly to us. Friends were getting in cars to drive across states to get to us. Like, everyone just rallied around us, and it was very traumatic. But they eventually caught the guy who fled the scene, who hit them. He was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. He claimed that he was having a mental breakdown. They couldn't prove that he did it on purpose, but my mom feels very, very strongly that it was intentional because she made eye contact with him, waved him down, and he continued to accelerate towards them. The judge threw out a murder charge. He said that they didn't have enough evidence for it. So he was charged with vehicular homicide, and sentenced to 10 years, of which he has 7 left. And yeah, it's been 3 years now since this happened. I don't like to call it an accident, but the incident, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember on your video, it happened on October 7th, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
that's correct.
That's the day before my birthday. So that's why it kind of
Mm,
rung out in my head.
yeah.
And I know now we've hit 3 years,
Yes.
and my brain is fraying in a thousand different ways with your story, and I probably have a thousand different questions. Um, but the one I keep coming back to is faith, and I'm
Hmm.
wondering, um, was your faith rocked during this? Obviously, you said you were calling people to pray for Henry.
Hmm.
Um, you wanted him to be saved. Obviously, that
Hmm.
was the utmost importance at this point. But was your faith rocked, or did it strengthen during those time periods?
It was so strengthened. In the beginning, was questioning God, why would you do this to me? Why would you take my baby? And then my biggest concern at the time was that Scarlett had suffered and that she was alone and scared and suffering after this happened. And so I was just praying, like, please send me some sort of sign that she didn't suffer and she wasn't alone. And at one point, I went to take a shower the first time that I was alone since this had happened. And I was in the shower just crying and praying. And I actually heard, it sounds crazy, but I actually heard God speak to me and tell me she was not alone. I came and walked her home.
Hmm.
And that just changed my entire perspective on everything. And I said, okay, that was my prayer, was that she wasn't alone and she wasn't scared. And God told me that she was not alone. He protected her and brought her home, and I can be at peace now and know that she wasn't just, laying there wondering where her mom was, and she was guided home.
Yeah. The verse that immediately pops out in my head, and I had to look it up while you were speaking there, is Matthew 18:10, and it says, "See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven." And whenever you talk about um, was she alone,
Mm-hmm.
I think I've struggled in some areas of thinking about guardian angels, and I think we
Mm-hmm.
do oversimplify it. And I don't think there's little babies with angels' wings playing harps and
Mm-hmm.
stuff that protect our children. But at the same time, it's a verse like that I do believe
Mm-hmm.
um, there are protectors, that we
Absolutely.
don't see. But I would absolutely agree that she was never alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And we did find out later that she died instantly. She that eased my worry and my heart a little bit to know that she wasn't just, laying there suffering in her last minutes. She just saw the face of God and went home and didn't even know what happened. She just went from picking flowers to dancing in heaven. And I just feel so much peace knowing that. And
Wow.
it did later. My son told me we went to a church service and there was a picture of Jesus. And he turned to me and he goes, "That guy was in the helicopter with me." And I said,
Mm.
"Oh yeah, like when you got hurt, he was in the helicopter with you." He goes, "Yeah, I had a big owie and he had little owies on his hands." And I said, "Yes, baby,
Wow.
he was with you and he was protecting you and keeping you safe." And that just blew my mind.
I still there's a lady that works at I want to say Virginia University,
Hmm.
and she specializes in near-death experiences, and I would love to get her on. We communicated a while back and lost
Hmm.
touch. I think I need to revisit that because it amazes me hearing people's near-death
Yeah.
experiences or these moments where health is not going well and
Hmm.
they have these experiences where I want to say, I hate to use the word blur, but it's like a blur between God's world and our
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And where they meet is sometimes very, very
Hmm.
amazing. I don't have any other word
Yeah.
besides amazing.
Yeah.
So that is a really cool story.
Hmm.
How is Henry now, 3 years later?
He's wonderful. You would never be able to tell that he was in this horrible incident. He has no lasting health conditions.
Wow.
He is 100% healed.
Power of
He,
prayer, right?
oh my gosh. Yeah. We just, the power of prayer and amazing medical staff. I mean, he was in the
Mhm.
best place possible and got the greatest care that he could have possibly gotten. Um, he he's doing wonderful. He misses his sister, of course, but we do a lot to keep her memory alive and
Good for you.
support his feelings and give him a safe space that he can talk about the trauma that he went through. Um, Even though he was only 2 at the time, he remembers a lot of it.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure.
so we give him a lot of, healthy space to talk about that and grieve his sister and just talk about his fears and his memories. But for the most part, he's just a wonderfully rounded little boy.
I'm going to ask you a question that you do not have to answer
Okay.
if not appropriate or if things are still going on. I imagine the case is fully closed at this point.
Hmm.
But did the gentleman who did this, did he have any words to say to the family or no?
Nope. He immediately afterwards he was posting on Facebook making jokes about it.
Wow.
Um he never showed remorse, never expressed anything about being sorry or regretful or wishing he wouldn't have done it. His lawyer said that he was remorseful, but he never ever addressed us or made any statements apologizing or anything like that. So I have no reason to believe that he is anything but evil.
Mm. Wow. Well, like you said, there's 7 more years to think about that, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in your position. I don't know what I would do.
Hmm.
Um, it is forgiveness at all on your mind? Is it hard? And certainly keep in mind there's no judgment here whatsoever.
Hmm.
And again, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how long I would hold this, if I would hold it forever, if I would let
Hmm.
it go. Um, where do you feel like you are with that, or do you know?
I think about it often.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like it's not my place to forgive, it's God's place to forgive. If if he was remorseful and apologized and made it seem like he cared about what happened, it would probably be a lot easier for me to forgive. But he just doesn't seem to care. And I don't think he cares if I forgive him or not,
Hmm.
honestly. Um, and it's been 3 years, but I still don't think I'm in the place to forgive.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, was this a difficult time for you in marriage?
absolutely. My husband and I grieved very differently. Um,
Yeah.
he internalized everything.
Hmm.
Didn't want to talk about it, just wanted to work it out in his own head, didn't want to go to therapy, didn't want to get outside help. I was very vocal. I wanted to talk about it and go to therapy and talk to friends and talk to him about it. Um, and we had to sit down and have a conversation and say, this is either going to break our marriage or it's going to bring us closer together. And we need to consciously decide that it's going to bring us closer together or this is going to end in divorce. And so every single day we chose to work for each other and show up for each other. And when one person was strong, the other person could break down. When one person needed, a day to be sad, the other person would pick up the household tasks. And we just had to be very conscious of each other and what the other person needed each day and just be there for each other. But it was very difficult. It's still very difficult. Um, it just was the 3 year anniversary and we still grieve differently. I like to do a lot to celebrate her and remember her, and it makes my husband sad
Hmm.
to do things like that. And so, like for me, October 7th is a day to celebrate Scarlett, and for him, October 7th is a day to mourn her. So we just are on different pages, and that's okay. We know that about each other now, so we are able to support each other in the best way. But yes, it was very difficult at the time.
Yeah, what you're talking about is called a window of tolerance. And think about if both people are fragile, it's called a dual fragile state. If one person is fragile and one is stable, it's an imbalanced state, and it could go one way or the other. But if both people are in a stable place, it's called a relational window of tolerance. And
Hmm.
it's something that we look for in couples. I don't do a lot of couples counseling anymore, but when both people are fragile, that is when we see the divorce rate in
Hmm.
couples who have lost a child very, very high. And, anybody listening to this, I would strongly have them look at that and also take from the fact that you stated, I made a daily choice to be positive for my marriage. I've not lost a child, to be fair, in this conversation, so I don't know fully, but from a
Hmm.
counselor standpoint, when two people are in a fragile state after the loss of a child, divorce is
Yeah.
imminent unless change is made. So, how do we get people to a stable state? And like you stated, your husband was internalizing. You
Hmm.
were trying to seek, outside help and vocalize certain things about your perspective of the same loss.
Hmm.
That is so difficult, but yet so important and such a wonderful thing to think about whenever it comes to the loss of a child. I don't know if you saw my recent post. Actually, it was yesterday about microchimerism. Did you see that by chance?
I didn't.
Okay. So I'll bring it. Are you familiar with that term at all?
No.
Okay. So this is great because I've never really explored this on a podcast yet, and I would love to kind of flourish this out a little bit and hear your take. Microchimerism is where your body, as a mother, actually takes on some of the DNA from a child while you're in the while the child is in utero. You basically do have blood. The DNA shows up in your blood, but once you have the child, that dissipates. If
Hmm.
I were to give you a blood transfusion today, that blood, my DNA in that blood dissipates within 24 hours up to probably 7 days. That way, if you went and say, committed a murder, my DNA is not going to show up at the murder
Hmm.
scene. Okay. However, whenever you have a child, their DNA is known to leave the blood once they're gone, but it actually goes towards organs like your heart, brain, things like that. It can actually strengthen weaknesses in your body, such as stem cells do, but it could also harm a mother in the fact that if you have an autoimmune disorder,
Hmm.
it could actually affect that in a negative way. But regardless, they've seen studies where the baby's DNA is in a mom for at least 27 years. I think that's the longest study that I've seen. The reason I bring that up, microchimerism, I do believe mothers grieve differently than
Hmm.
fathers. Now,
Yeah.
ultimately, and I want everybody listening to understand what I'm stating, I think truly that relationally, that is the ultimate determinant of how a person grieves. I've seen mothers that have nothing to do with their children and fathers who are torn apart.
Hmm.
But I do believe mothers, on average, grieve a lot differently than fathers because the child's DNA is still in you. Now,
Mm.
here's where it gets super cool. So, I'm going to use your daughter for an example, if that's okay
Hmm.
with you.
Yeah.
So, Scarlett's DNA, part of it is still in your body.
Hmm.
There's something called sibling microchimerism.
Mm.
So, the first child's DNA is in you. And when you had Henry, Scarlett's DNA could very well be in Henry and
Mm.
any other child that follows. To me, that is mind blowing.
That's
I
really
love
cool.
it. And I absolutely, whenever I think about um, God and just how cool he is and we call it science, but really it's just some cool heavenly miracles going on, right?
Yeah.
So that every one of your children very well could have a part of Scarlet inside of them, as do you.
I love that.
Yeah,
That that's really cool.
it is. I really wish everybody would go learn about it. I started looking into DNA over the past year. I've been looking at bone, flesh, and
Mm.
blood. and of course the overall umbrella of DNA. And I saw a lady on TikTok, and she was talking about how a baby's DNA stays in a mother's blood forever, and that's not exactly correct. But I liked where she was going with it, and then that's why I put out the video yesterday,
Hmm.
just not to correct her, but more so to state that it actually goes deeper than that. It doesn't stay
Hmm.
in the blood, but it goes to the organs, the heart, the brain, two major
Yeah.
pieces of our body.
Yeah.
And it can go to other organs as well. But it's like you, I think, will forever have truly DNA of your daughter with you.
Yeah.
And just to know that your other children very well could have a piece of her with them as well. It's a beautiful story.
Yeah. That's really cool.
It is. I could
Yeah.
talk about that all day.
Yeah.
I
No, I love
really,
that.
it is
That's
so
so
cool.
special.
It is. It is. Now, to be fair too, I don't want to leave your husband out. Obviously, he had a part of making your daughter as well.
Hmm.
So, um, it's it. Everybody has something of her, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know. So Scarlett lives on, right?
Absolutely. She definitely lives on, and I love the thought of something physical of her living on too. I mean, her memory lives on and we keep her spirit alive, but that's really cool to think about, like her actual DNA like being sticking around and being part of us.
Yeah, yeah. So go research that after
Yeah.
this microchimerism, and that's
Okay.
Chimerism, microchimerism. So, and go
Cool.
check out my last TikTok video, and you can see me speaking a little bit further about it. But yeah, it's a really cool thing. Whenever I started researching it, I'm just like, wow. I've always thought moms and dads kind of grieve a little bit differently. And I always thought maybe it's just because mom carried the baby for 9 months,
Hmm.
but it goes way deeper than that. It's
Hmm.
to a cellular level.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, and I can attest to the fact that when I was told that Scarlett didn't survive, like I felt it in my bones. I felt it on a molecular level. Like I felt like a piece of my body was missing, and it just was a very physical reaction to to her not being on earth anymore. And it was it was kind of surprising just how physically I felt that.
And not to diminish your story in any way, but I've heard a lot of moms state that. And that's
Yeah.
another reason why I'm like, there's got to be more to this.
Mhm.
There's got to be more than just carrying or being the vessel for this baby
Mhm.
that brings on this connection.
Yeah.
So it is a beautiful thing. And the first time I ever started thinking about this, I was at a grief seminar that I was doing, and a woman stated something about she had lost both of her parents. And this was a woman probably in her, I'd say, late 50s, early 60s. And she's like, but their blood still runs through my veins.
Mhm.
And in her case, the case of a child, I would state, yeah, you've got two other humans that brought you into this world, and yes, pieces of them are definitely in you, but we
Mhm.
don't think about it being kind of reversed back towards the mom ever. So just
Yeah.
super cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool to think about, and I like that you are talking about that because that's not something that a lot of people like know about. And
It is not something that is very open or well, like y it's out there, but you
Mhm.
have to research. And I think it's got
Sure.
to be maybe some weird research that brings you to that
Yeah,
point.
exactly. Exactly.
Had I not been researching DNA and stuff like that, then whenever I heard this woman on TikTok, I don't think I would have been like, I'm not sure about that.
Mhm.
Like, so then when I started researching, and I already knew that with transfusions, DNA in the blood transfers out really quickly, usually
Hmm.
24 hours to 7 days, and it's gone. So I started debating that. Now, again, when you have the child in utero, it's that is their DNA is a lot of times in your blood, and that's how they actually find certain things that may be going on with the baby that
Hmm.
aren't good.
Hmm.
I can't think of any right off the bat, but there's certain tests, and there's one four-letter test that I can't think of, but they can test different things like, does your baby have this? Is this
Yeah.
going on with the baby? And um, science is cool. Like if science were this cool back whenever I was in, say, elementary or high school, I probably would have made good grades. But
Yeah.
they were too busy talking about, what does a worm eat? And it's like, I don't really care, you know.
Yeah.
But all this DNA stuff is just fascinating,
Hmm.
fascinating. But yeah, I guess the important thing is, yeah, Scarlett lives in you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I love that.
Tell me how your grief journey has changed from the beginning. Obviously,
Hmm.
one of the words you used was, I was in shock. And I don't
Yeah.
know anybody who could listen to your story or have been in a similar spot and not feel that shock
Hmm.
with you or in their own situation. But here I sit in front of you. You're able to speak to me. Obviously, you've been a little teary-eyed at a couple of points here. How could you not be?
Hmm.
But you hold it together fairly well. How has that changed? Show me or tell me
Yeah.
about the transition.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was obviously overwhelming. I mean, the just shock of everything, the horror, the trauma, the like confusion, and just trying to figure out how this was real life and navigate the loss of my daughter while trying to, get my son healthy and focus on him, being going back and forth from the hospital to the funeral home and just trying to balance everything and be there for everyone that needed me to be there for them. It was overwhelming. It was a
That's what,
lot.
yeah, that's one of the things I think a lot of people discount is life doesn't stop,
No.
especially when you have other children,
Mhm.
jobs, homes,
Mhm.
homeschooling, things
Yeah.
like that. Life doesn't stop,
No.
and yet you're, um, in a lot of ways, I think people look at it like what's, you know, that you have nothing else going on and
Mhm.
just give you time to grieve. That's one of the things that really drives me crazy about grief out in the corporate world
Mm.
is they assign to you, depending on the company, what they feel is appropriate for loss. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you get 5 days for a child or father or mother.
Mhm.
You get, 3 days for a sister and
Yeah.
1 day for a cousin or aunt. It's like, how can that be prescriptive? Now,
No way.
there's some countries that they give, like, if you take 6 months, whatever,
Mhm.
that's that. In fact, I was speaking to someone recently, and I cannot think of who it was right off the bat. I've got a billion things going on in my mind right now. But um, whenever you think about that right there, like how can you prescribe a
Right.
certain time frame as opposed to stating what's good for you? How can I be there for you? What are the
Mhm.
tools and resources that I can get to you so you can come back to work?
Absolutely.
But think about this. As a mom, most moms are given 6 weeks for maternity leave.
Mhm.
Why do we not do the same thing for losses in our life? We
Yeah.
can do it for birth. Why not for losses?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm so thankful to my husband's company, that he works for Pape Machinery, and everyone donated their time off to him.
Wow.
Um, he was able to stay home with us for almost 8 months,
Holy
and
cow.
still get
That
his
is
regular
awesome.
pay. So we could still pay our bills, pay our mortgage. And he was able to be home with us. And everyone in the company just donated their time to him. And I I just don't know what I would have done if he had to go back to work a week later. He wouldn't have been able to do it. He would have had to quit his job. I mean, there's no way that you can grieve a child in a week. Um, you just can't. And with everything that we had going on with Henry and his healing and his health journey, like afterwards, I needed my husband there. And we still had a mortgage to pay and electricity bills to pay and food to buy and formula for the 2 month old. Like we still had a life that we had to live. And I'm just so grateful to his company that they were able to support us in that way.
Mhm.
And we also had a GoFundMe made for us. Um, and we were able to live off of that money for a while. I was blown away by the community support
Mm.
that we got, and just people from all over the country and all over the world. And like our story just spread, and people donated to us and sent us things for the kids and bought us formula, made us meals. Like the community just rallied around us in such an amazing way. And I'm grateful that we had that. I know that that's not common. I know that that's not like, when everybody loses somebody, they don't have people making them meals and donating to a GoFundMe and, doing all of that stuff. We were so privileged to have that. Um,
Yeah,
but
Sam, you're actually restoring my faith in humanity here.
oh my gosh. Well, and it's like this horrible thing happened, the worst of humanity. And then the best of humanity came forward, and
Mm.
all of the good people came out of the woodwork and just supported us. I didn't cook a meal for probably 3 or 4 months after Scarlett died. Like we had hot meals delivered to our home every single day, and people were dropping off formula, and people were checking on us, and they started a little memorial site for Scarlett at the end of our
Mm.
driveway and would come by. And there was one lady who would come by and turn on the little battery operated candles every morning on her way to work. She would turn on the
Mm.
candles and then come by and turn them off on her way home. And just people were there for our family in a way that I just cannot believe. And that that made all the difference in the world in my grieving process, because we weren't alone. We had people at our home checking on us, being there for us every step of the way, asking how they could support us and taking things off of our plate and just showing up for us. It was really hard in the beginning to just see that the world kept turning,
Yeah.
and everyone, I would look out the hospital window and see everyone just driving to work, and I'm like, don't you know that my daughter just died?
Mm.
How are you okay? Like the world has stopped. I don't understand. And it slowly started spinning again. People kept showing up, and people still show up 3 years later. um People remember her and talk about her. We started a a scholarship fund at her little preschool that she went to.
Mm.
And so they have a little playground in her memory, and we just we're keeping her in people's minds. And I think that helps with my grief a lot, to just know that she's not forgotten about.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam, it's been awesome. I really appreciate you sharing your
Yeah.
story. I feel like I've got 1,000 other questions. Maybe we'll have to do an episode two at some point
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
catch up and see where you're at, later down the road too. But
Yeah.
any last thoughts, whether it's about Scarlet, grief, whatever you want to say here at the end.
Yeah. My biggest thing that I advocate for on my TikTok is grieving loudly. It's okay to grieve people. You don't have to grieve in silence to make other people comfortable. It's okay to grieve loudly and talk about your person and talk about being sad and the feelings and emotions that come with grief. You don't have to hold that in to yourself if you don't want to. You are allowed to make other people uncomfortable and talk about your story and talk about your grief.
Yeah, yeah. I think we always have to keep talking about those that we love, those that are no longer with us.
Hmm.
But I think our grief story is equally as important because people
Hmm.
learn from it, and
Absolutely.
um, I've learned so much from those that grieve. I've had loss of my own, not with a
Hmm.
parent, not with a child, but we all learn something every time somebody shares their story of grief.
Yeah.
And that's really why I started this podcast to begin
Yeah.
with, was just for people to be heard. I think the life of Scarlett needs to be heard, and
Yeah.
continued. And and your grief story is equally as important.
Well,
So,
thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk about her and to share my story.
yeah, I appreciate you being here. And like I said, you're welcome back anytime, Sam.
Thank you.
Listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we appreciate you being here. And again, if you want to connect with Sam, feel free to check out the description in the show notes, and I'll have her information for her TikTok page. And if you want to come on and share your story, please reach out to me as well. And until next episode, have a great day, everyone.